So, show of hands, who's read Aruba's blog response to the Dragonblood paper?
The first one?
Yeah. Okay, good. So, really the only big change between the first one and the one that Matthew presented at Black Hat was the addition of the brain pool curves as not being good to use. So, I think that the work he did is incredible. It's great. It's important, and I think it's some brilliant hacking. It's very impressive. That said, I think he is somewhat overselling some of the points that he was making in his paper. He says that his paper shows how it's extremely difficult to implement SAE securely. And I disagree with that. I don't think it's extremely difficult. I think the Wi-Fi Alliance came out with a set of some security considerations on what to do to the countermeasures to deal with the attacks that he described in Dragonblood. And if you follow all of those, including don't use the brain pool curves, you're secure. Now, that said, the looping that you have to do before you start the SAE exchange, it has to be done in constant time. And that can be tricky. One of the attacks that was in his original paper was that the most popular open source Wi-Fi supplicant and AP code did not do this looping in constant time. So he was able to do a cache-based attack to find out how the code branched, and he's able to partition the dictionary and figure out what the password was. That code got patched in like 2 days. So I think everybody should probably have patched their code. If it didn't do constant time already, it should be all constant time by now. So if you just follow the security considerations, I think you can implement this in a secure manner. That said, it is somewhat inefficient in that you've got to loop through this thing like 40 times to mask your the work you're doing. In Matthew's paper that he presented at Black Hat, I think he actually named a company explicitly. This was a member of the Wi-Fi Alliance who did not follow the recommendations that the Wi-Fi Alliance came out with. Instead of looping 40 times, I think they looped 6. So he's able to take their product, figure out the work that it was doing, and again, partition the password database. So, these people didn't follow the recommendations. Bad move. But because of the inefficiency in having to loop all these times, I came up with a submission. It's in .11 now. I think it's going to be voted on next month at the next meeting of .11. And this uses a technique that's being developed in the Cryptoform research group at the IETF to directly hash into the curve. So what is done in SAE now, it's called hunting and pecking. It gets a random number and it tries, is that a point on the curve? No. Is that a point on the curve? Is that a point? So it's this, and you got to do that 40 times, right? But with the new proposal is to just hash directly into the curve. You just do some algebra, and you're guaranteed to get a point on the curve. It's much more efficient. And also, I've moved that work to the beginning of the exchange. So when you provision the password, you can do all that work and hash the curve, and you get this secret element. And then when you start SAE, you don't have to do any of that hashing to curve. You just do 1 point multiply, and you're off. So the change that I'm proposing will make this much more efficient, less fragile, and it will encourage people like the vendor that only did it 6 times to basically come out with secure implementations. The important thing to keep in mind is the changes I'm proposing are not changing the protocol. It's still SAE. It's still the same messages, the same formats. They're constructed the same, processed the same. The state machine is the same. The entire protocol is the same. What changes is the work you do at the beginning. You either do this hunting and pecking, or you do hash to curve. And if both sides support hash to curve, they'll do hash to curve. If one side or both sides don't support hash to curve, they'll do hunting and pecking. Now, assuming you follow the Wi-Fi Alliance security recommendations, hunting and pecking should be fine. It's a little more inefficient. It's going to take, a little bit more time. But again, these are ECC operations. They're usually pretty quick. I can't even tell the difference between 20 and 40 operations on my laptop. Granted, my laptop's kind of fast, but doing 40 loops through the hunting and pecking loop is not really that onerous, but hash to curve is going to be very fast. And again, this is a technique that's developed by cryptographers at the CFRG. This is not some crazy thing the Wi-Fi Alliance dreamed up. This is came from a cryptographic paper vetted by cryptographers, developed by cryptographers. I'm just taking the scheme they used and applying it to SAE. One of the other criticisms that Matthew had in his paper was he was saying that these protocols are being developed sort of like in secret and behind closed doors and things like that. And that's not really the case. The Wi-Fi Alliance is really kind of, they have transparency problems. Everything they do is proprietary, and it's, you know, you can't release documents until the board approves them and all this nonsense. So the Wi-Fi Alliance does have transparency problems, but the Wi-Fi Alliance doesn't really develop these standards. They just certify them. So SAE came out of IEEE, and IEEE is not some closed, secretive organization. That protocol was developed over a period of like 3 years. It had lots of input, lots of changes, lots of people, you know, got their hands mixed into the pot, and there was, you know, a lot of input. So that wasn't done in a secret manner. OWE, for instance, that came out of the IETF. Now, this also is a very open standards organization. It's not secretive. You know, nothing's done behind closed doors. So, you know, Matthew's critique that, you know, the stuff was kind of secretively crammed through some standards process is not really truthful from a standpoint. If you look at the time frame of when these things were done and how they were done. So it's a great paper. It's great work. I'm glad he did it, because now we've basically got some good analysis and we've shored up the problems that were in it. But again, I don't want to say that what he did is not good. It's fantastic. It's incredible. And I'm extremely impressed by his hacking technique. But again, I think some of his claims have been oversold for probably obvious reasons. But you know, the message is WPA3 SAE is not insecure. It's still secure. The changes that we're planning on putting into SAE will make it more efficient, a little bit more robust, but it's going to be the same protocol, the same message exchange. And the nice thing about this is it's going to be transparent to the user. So when users bring up, they're just going to go to the SSID, they're going to click, it's going to say enter your password, then enter their password, boom. There's no provisioning or configuration necessary for them to say, oh, I want to do hash to curve, not hunting and pecking. That's going to be taken care of automatically. If both sides support it, they'll do it. They'll do the better way. If one or both sides don't, again, they won't. But that's completely transparent to the user. They're doing SAE, they're doing WPA3, it's all the same. It's just faster and more robust.
So 2 questions. One is, there's going to be some sort of an amendment to WPA3, or is it just going to be WPA 3.1, or is it going to be update 2019?
I have no idea how the Wi-Fi Alliance is going to market this.
Okay.
I'm not a marketing guy, and every time I try and do it, I just flub up.
Fair enough.
But the point is, since this is going to be completely transparent to the user, I don't think we need to come. It shouldn't be WPA4. That would be stupid.
Well, right.
Because it's the same protocol, right? I mean, if you look in the air, the same packets are going by. The implementation is exactly the same for how to handle the protocol. The protocol is the same. All that's being changed is what you do before you start the protocol. So if they want to call it 3.1 or plus or enhanced WP, I don't know. I hope whatever they do is good, but again, I don't think this is going to really rev WPA3.
Okay.
It shouldn't.
And then for mere mortals, just to clarify, any of the proposed changes aren't going to require new hardware or a forklift of any of the existing pieces that are in place?
No, there's no hardware changes. I implemented this. When I wrote the spec, I wanted to make sure it worked. So I implemented this stuff. I put it into my open source SAE implementation. I have not uploaded that to the repository yet, but it works. It's a lot shorter than the hunting and pecking because, again, it's just some 8 lines of algebra and you got a point. So it's a lot simpler and it's a lot more efficient. And yeah, no hardware, no forklifts.